and welcome to Fridays with Foster. Very good to see everyone up and ready to get some good information about their life and their business. And I personally love to see the weather changing. So with that, look at our coffee. Nothing special today. It's Cafecito de Cuba, and that's it's kind of one of my stock favorites from Nespresso. But today we want to talk about something that I've seen a lot with my clients and people in general is overwhelm. Let me preface this by saying that I am prone to overwhelm as well. And I am by no means an expert, but I have had a lot of mentors and people in my life that continue to help me work through this perspective shift that's necessary to deal with overwhelm. But as always, we start with a couple of quotes. So first, this is by a fellow business coach named Bruce Wilson, who is out in New Zealand. And he always says, which I pass this on to my clients, abundance cannot occur where drama or complexity exist. When you're overwhelmed, there are usually both of those cases intact. So there's drama and there is complexity at the same time. So if those are the cases, and you're not sure why things aren't going your way, it's usually because of that. E.F. Schumacher has a wonderful quote about when we look at simplicity and complexity. Any intelligent fool can make things bigger and more complex. It takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction. So why isn't Foster talking about overwhelm? Why is he talking about complexity and simplification? And I will answer that. So the idea today is, well, first let me do one more quote by Hans Hofmann, who says, the ability to simplify means to eliminate the unnecessary so that the necessary may speak. The reason that I'm talking about simplicity and complexity is that from my experience, as well as me personally, I fall into a trap. The trap I fall into is I am different. I'm unique. My situation is special. And those alone are not problems in and of themselves. Well, when they swing over to the other side and we say it's because of these things that these solutions that everybody has will not work for me, so we shut them down. A lot of complex problems have simple solutions, and what we're talking about here is not that any of these things are easy, especially if you are currently overwhelmed, but they are simple. My dad and I have a line that we often use, that it's tough to drain the swamp when you're up to your ass in alligators. And that's really true in business, especially when you've got your high season, whether you're a CPA or if you're in manufacturing or if you're in the HVAC industry and it's merging on summer, things like that. Overwhelm is overwhelming in and of itself. But it's important to realize that there are usually simple, scary things that need to be done. One of the first things I like to do is I like to think, what do I need to stop doing, right? What are the things that I need to stop doing right now? Usually what happens is I'm doing things for my team because I don't trust them, haven't trained them, there's no process, so I just figure it's faster if I do it. Well, one time might be faster, but when you realize that you're going to be doing that one time 50 times a week, all of a sudden it doesn't look like you're saving so much time. Well, let's back up a second. One of the most important things that I see when we get to a point of overwhelm, and I'll just talk about myself personally, it's a very challenging aspect of shifting away from overwhelm is self-care. A friend of mine from Los Angeles used to say that most of my problems can be solved with a sandwich and a nap. That is actually still true today. But I have to look at myself and say, what am I doing to take care of myself? Am I taking care of myself? Or am I working myself into the ground? Stephen Covey talked about sharpening the saw. So one of the first questions to ask myself whenever I'm in overwhelm is, am I sharpening the saw? Am I taking care of myself? And I think it can be tricky because there are things that my brain can tell me is taking care of myself. If it's sitting on the couch and watching Netflix and eating popcorn or potato chips, that may seem like a good solution and maybe taking care of myself. But at the end, I actually feel worse. That's just me personally. Pizza's a big one for me. I love pizza. And I don't eat a little bit of anything that I love, right? If it's a steak, it's huge. If it's a pizza, it's as much as I can fit in my mouth and then some. But what I have to do is I have to play that tape all the way forward and say, what do I need to do to take care of myself today? Maybe it's doing something physical and going for a walk. Maybe it's reaching out to a friend and maybe just asking them how they're doing. A great thing to do is reaching out to people that may or may need help, because it's really tough to think of ourselves when we're helping somebody else. And a lot of times that's where the issues come from for me, is I'm too much time ruminating in the midst of my overwhelm of what I've got to do and how I've got to do it. It's, it can be very discouraging. So reaching out to other people, that can be a way to actually take care of ourselves. Aside from that, so once we've taken care of ourselves, we're eating, we're resting, some kind of exercise. If you've got a therapist, talk to them. If you don't have a therapist, get a therapist. It's easy in these Zoom days. Telehealth's been around for a bit, but now it's commonplace with pretty much every therapist and even medical practices as well. So that would be something you might want to engage in if you just don't feel like you can get around this on your own. So then we look at our situation, so our life situation, work situation. Well, if there's a problem there, the first thing I talked about was look at the things you need to stop doing. And sometimes that's really easy to see and list, but you don't know exactly how to do that. What we like to do is we like to look at a couple, I'm not going to put specific steps to this, but these are just ideas, things that I've used in my life and that I've used with my clients. First is to isolate the problem. If there's something going on that's overworking you and overburdening you, and it's not as simple as say, oh, well, I need to stop doing X. So I need to stop tolerating people being late for work, because what I end up doing is I end up having another one of my managers or somebody covering for them for the phone calls or for the sales calls or for something that's not happening, or people aren't reaching their sales numbers. I don't really say anything about it. So I'm the one that ends up busting my butt at the end of the month to go make a bunch of sales to make up for that. Those are some simple things that you can see that are, again, simple, not easy, that need to be stopped. But isolate the problem, right? So what is the problem? Not what is the symptom. Now, a lot of times, I've talked about this in a previous episode of Fridays with Foster. Don't treat the symptom, treat the actual problem, okay? So if there's an issue with sales, again, was my example before, the issue might be that I'm not holding my sales team accountable to their goals. So them underperforming, okay, great. You could say that's a problem. Well, why is that a problem? Well, maybe it's more of a symptom of the fact that I'm not holding them accountable, right? Or I'm not providing certain training opportunities. Or if you say, well, Foster, not everything's my fault. Well, first of all, if you're the business owner, it might not be your fault, but it's your responsibility. So how long have I allowed an underperforming salesperson to linger around in my company? That was a great thing about, I think I mentioned it before at a previous episode, the wonderful thing about the pandemic from a coaching standpoint for me, a lot of this overwhelm and stuff really came on quick because people had a significant amount of unknowns. And what it did was it exacerbated the existing issues that a lot of business owners just accepted as being commonplace. Oh, we're going to kind of we're going to do a budget at the beginning of the year, but then we're not going to look at it until the end. Or, oh, I've got some people that are underperforming, but they're doing okay. Or, I've got some C grade players on the team, but they're doing all right. All of a sudden, it was like, oh my gosh, where's our budget? Are we following it? What's our sales team doing? How can we increase sales? And why are we continuing to pay these people that aren't doing what they're supposed to do? We're like, well, you've been doing it for the last 3 years, but all of a sudden now, because COVID and money and all this stuff, everybody's like, oh my gosh, I got to do something, right? So the pandemic was really good for that. But there are some other challenges with that. And again, looking at what the symptoms are. So a lot of the times the problem is, as an owner, I've accepted things and I've tolerated things in my business. And whether you know it or not, or whether you think you are doing it or not, you are building a culture in your company. Question is, do you know what kind of culture that is? So you break the problem down. A lot of times if you break the problem down, that's another thing that can kind of simplify it, the idea of how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. So just break it down. Start by listing out the 5 areas of your business, which every business is: marketing, sales, operations, human resources, and financials. Now within that, of course, everybody's going to say we're so complex, we have all these different departments within. That's fine. But in general, there are 5 main parts of every company. Start breaking down some of the areas that are taking up the majority of your time and overwhelm, that maybe are things that other people should be doing. You could also do something like make a weighted pro and con list. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a really useful tool, very simple, that I have my clients do. When they have a decision to make, they're not sure what to do, they make a pro and con list like you normally would, a regular pro and con list. But you got to remember that not all pros and cons are created equal. So if you're looking to open up into develop into another area, and you're trying to figure out what that would look like on a pro and con list, and well, the pro might be an increase in revenue of 20% by opening expanding into a new market, and that's really good. That's really good, especially given today's day and age. You would put that down as a weighted, maybe out of 5, you would put that a 3 or maybe a 4, depending on your industry and what that level of growth is. And on the other side, you might say the con is that by expanding out there, I'm actually going to increase my labor force by 5 or 10%, which would be increasing my payroll that much more. Kind of a silly example, because you'd be able to see that before you expand out into an area of how much money that's going to cost you. But right away, like, that's going to be weighted a lot more heavily. The really strong part about a weighted pro and con list is that you can start to put some kind of a quantifiable measurement to a lot of the soft aspects of making decisions, right? Of dealing with overwhelm, cutting this out, cutting that out, stop this and stop that. If I cut this out, the pro is it's going to make my life a lot easier and free up maybe 2 days of my week that maybe I can go home and have dinner with my family. Well, what's that worth to you, right? Probably to me, it's a 5. So those are the positives that come from a weighted pro and con list. And then you just add up each side, and usually whichever one's got more, that's the one that's going to tell you what you need to do. The other thing is a gap analysis. For those of you who don't know what a gap analysis is, it's kind of a 3-step process, pretty simple and straightforward. You start with where you are and where you're trying to go, right? So step 1, this is where we're at now regarding X, Y, or Z in our company: product development, or sales, or market share, or maybe efficiency, something along those lines. This is where we're at. This is where we're trying to get over here. And then obviously the gap is the space in between that. And you say, what is it that's holding us back from doing that, right? What are the things that are getting in the way? A lot of that, not identifying those, that can cause overwhelm as a business owner, because everything looks important, but it's more urgent than anything else, because I don't understand where I'm at or where I'm going. I think I've said before, the best map in the world is useless if I don't know where I am. So I've got to start with that very first part of where the business is, where I am today, and then I have to have a vision of where I'm going, or else I won't know the problems that are in the middle that I've got to deal with. Make a plan, even if it's a simple 1-page plan that says, here's the goal. Here are some of the tactics that I need to follow up with in order to achieve the goal. Here's the timeline for those to accomplish those, and then here are people that need to be involved in this process or for me to delegate with. You can make like I've seen 1-page annual plans, which is pretty impressive. But a lot of times just getting it out like that can reduce overwhelm, because a lot of that is stuck up here, right? I need to get it out, either to share with other people or whatever the case might be. And make a decision, right? So if you're done, we talk about the formula for change at Action Coach. And I'm not going to write it out right now, but you can call me if you want. I'll send you the sheet. But it really means that you have to have a significant amount of dissatisfaction with your current situation, times a vision for what you want the situation to look like, and then add to that the first steps to accomplish that. And you will change, provided that those 3 things are greater than your resistance. So a lot of people walk around and they're dissatisfied. All they do is mope around about how bad things are, and I'm not belittling people that are going through struggles in their life, but I've been like this myself. And oh, this is so bad, I don't know what to do. It's so bad, it's so bad. Well, that's dissatisfaction. That doesn't do much of anything. Then you've got the visioning portion. A lot of people are visioners or visionaries and daydreamers, right? And that's like The Secret. If you've read The Secret, like, see myself shifting the Ferrari and da, 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 da. But at some point you got to like actually get up and go to work to make money. Don't just sit there daydreaming and visioning, right? That alone is not good enough. And then first steps, people that take first steps to do everything. They try something here, they try this, they try that, they try that, they try that. It's a whole mishmash, but it doesn't match a vision, and they may not be fully dissatisfied with their situation. So the resistance to this change based on fear and things like that is not going to allow you to change. So you've got to make a decision. But as John Maxwell talks about, the decision to do something is nowhere near as important as the management of that decision. So one of the ways that we can help manage that decision is we can seek counsel. We have people in our lives that we trust, that we love, and that are willing to be honest with us, right, about what's going on. So seek counsel for validation on the idea, maybe, and also there's an opportunity to utilize that person for accountability. So say, Foster, I just want to let you know that I'm going to stop doing X on Fridays. I'm not going to engage in maybe outside sales, because I cover for my sales guy, because I allow him to take some Fridays off here or there and he takes advantage, but I find myself working in sales every single Friday. I said, awesome. So how are we going to do this kind of check-in for accountability? So well, you call me at 11:30 on Fridays, and you let me know and check in with me and let me know that you haven't started doing sales yet for the day. That's your accountability. The other way to work on accountability, get an app, a calendar app, and just mark down what you should and shouldn't be doing. Another thing is just tell other people about what you're doing. You'd be surprised how many people have experience with what you're doing right now. I'm very careful. If I tell my wife I'm going to do something, I've got to do it. I have the worst thing in the world. I told my wife, I think it was a birthday present. Sorry about the mic. I told her I was going to stop smoking cigars, and I did for a little while, and then I didn't, and I still feel horrible about that, because I love to stick to things that I say I'm going to do. And you can see, obviously, I got very guarded when I said that, because I just feel horrible about it. But if I really want to achieve something, tell somebody I care about. And those things are to deal with overwhelm. How do I let things go? How do I take care of myself? Hey, I'm going to have a massage this weekend. Or hey, I'm going to take the morning and I'm going to go running. Or hey, I'm going to spend time with my phone on the side and just be with my kids. I'm going to make pancakes, right? Whatever the case might be, those are opportunities for you to lessen the overwhelm. First and foremost, be kind to yourself. The majority of the problems and fears and overwhelm and situations that I think I have going on in my life are because I'm taking things too serious and taking life too serious. When I've got a business meeting or a presentation or something going on, usually when I show up, it's not nearly as serious as I thought it was. I'll still do a good job, I'll still be prepared, but usually everything works out okay anyway. So sometimes just having faith in what you're doing and why you're doing it. So if you still have a lot of overwhelm, you have things you want to talk about, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help in any way I can and share some more of my experience with you. So hope you have a wonderful weekend, unless you've got other plans. Hopefully that's not the case. We can choose the kind of day we want to have today. So I'm going to choose to have a positive day, and I appreciate you taking time for yourself. Have a great day.